Hey YouTube, today I want to talk about just a lot of certain aspects of the spiritual path and what spirituality is really all about, because I was confused for quite a while, and I see a lot of people that are confused about what the spiritual path is. I see a lot of delusion out there in terms of people think spirituality is all about manifestation, all about self-improvement and appeasing the desires of the ego. But whenever that's the place you're coming from, really you're just reinforcing those ego structures instead of working through them. Um, and in the beginning, that's a stage we're all going to have to go through, because all we know is how to operate from the ego structure. So we're going to have to work through that and pursue spirituality because of its promises, because of bliss, because of, depending on the person, they're going to have different, ways that they at first conceptualize spirituality as, if I do these spiritual practices, I'm going to get something out of it and I'm going to be able to manifest the circumstances that I want in my life. And a lot of that stuff works. You can manifest the things you want. You can obtain material desires through these practices, but at some point, you're going to realize that that's only appeasing the ego, and a lot of that's actually just strengthening the ego structure. Whereas what true spirituality is about is completely letting go of yourself, completely letting go of all your preferences and desires, so that way the soul can shine forth and truly express itself. Because what's happening with most people in today's world is the ego and all of its wants and its emotions and all this, that's obstructing the true nature of what you really are, which is a soul. Because the ego is something that is created. It's an illusion. It's not real. It's a story you tell yourself about your life and about what you want and about your career. But all of that was just a story you made up. When you were born as a baby, you didn't have any of this. You didn't know you were a person. Um, it was only because society taught you those things that you learned to identify your consciousness with the ego structure. And that is the cause of all suffering, because when you don't get what you want, now you either feel anger or you feel restless, and now you're trying to go out and disturb yourself with constantly coming up with schemes. This is what the ego and the mind does: come up with schemes as to how you're going to obtain something. And then when that doesn't work out, or even if it does work out, you'll feel satisfied for a little bit, but then you're going to go form another desire, which is going to cause suffering. And it's just going to be a perpetual cycle of never-ending suffering until. But the thing is, that suffering can kind of burn you up enough so that now you're willing to just surrender to God, surrender to spirit, and really look and introspect and see what's not serving you and let that go. And ultimately, this can be a process that unfolds over time, and it's going to have to be a process that unfolds over time of letting your ego go, because it's just so strong and the patterns are so strong that they want to persist. Even when you know that these patterns aren't auspicious for you, that they're not good, it's still going to take some time to work through it. But that's the true purpose of spirituality. Anytime you want something out of spirituality, that's not what real spirituality is, because the purpose of it is just coming in alignment with spirit, and when you're coming to alignment and you're experiencing reality as a soul instead of as an ego, then you're really in tune with God and you're in tune with the source, and you can use that power to express the soul's true nature and express your individualization of the soul, which is what you came to Earth to express. So, and I've been having some really profound meditations recently, really just profound experiences where I'm able to completely let go of the mind. Um, and that's just a much, because then you're going to realize that's the only way. If you care about realizing the truth, you have to let the mind and the ego go completely, and the ego is always going to want to stick. But the longer you work with this, somehow the stronger your devotion becomes. God or your guru, um, or just your spiritual teacher is going to assist you in letting go completely of the mind. And because the mind is the illusion which obstructs what reality truly is, which is peace and love and oneness, and your true nature, which isn't essentially an individualization of that, or is the same thing as that, which is consciousness. Because people think that they're a human body and they're so identified with the human body that they think that their nature is an individualized, separate human body which has consciousness. But the truth is, your true nature is consciousness, which is inherent in everything, which is inhabiting the human body. So the process, so now let me get into that's what spirituality is all about, is letting go of the lower self, because you already are your true nature. It's not about becoming anything. It's just about letting go of the obstructions which are in the way of the true reality. Because once you let go, you're constantly distracted by the inner workings of the ego. When you are able to completely let that go, that's when you can realize truth and realize God and realize what reality is. And that's actually the natural state of being, and which you have the free will. And essentially, that's your birthright to be able to realize that. Um, but in the beginning, if you don't have the intuition, it's going to be hard to believe a lot of things people are telling you, and it's going to be hard to let the ego and let the mind go because it's so persistent. And even after years, it's still going to be difficult. Like, you're still going to be working through things. But to start out, what really helps is, there's a lot of things you need. The number one, I think the most important aspect you can have is a really deep desire to know the truth, first of all, and to not just want to appease the ego, getting caught up in all these, you can manifest this and that, and these catchy YouTube trends and these communities. Some of that can be good. And when you find a real true spiritual teacher that's really working for you, and the teachings and the techniques are just really raising your consciousness, for me, that's a self-realization fellowship lessons. Look into Paramahansa Yogananda's work if that sounds interesting. But that's what's really changed my life. That's what my path is. So have the desire to know the truth. Look and keep on trying different techniques. But once you find something that really works for you, to stick with that and put your primary attention and focus on that, because that's your path. And if you're just going and taking bits from a bunch of different spiritual paths, that can be good at first to give you a variety of perspectives and to open your mind. But when you're really trying to get to realization, in my opinion, sticking to the one technique that's authentic to you, that you just are gonna know once you find it that it's right for you. That's what's really gonna help. Um, but yeah, I think regardless of the path, like, meditation um, is something that all of these paths, or most of them, endorse for a reason. And that's because meditation is going to allow you to really introspect and see the inner workings of the mind over time. And even if you're a beginner on the path, don't feel discouraged if there's a lot of thoughts and there's a lot of distractions when you meditate. That's going to happen to everybody. And even after years, that can still be an issue. But even just sitting there, just being aware of that instead of being so absorbed in it that you're not even aware that it's happening, all the thoughts and the neurosis that's going on throughout the day. Meditation is going to allow you to really be aware of your predicament and aware of the inner workings of the mind which are causing your suffering. And then over time, through meditation, and there's a variety of different techniques, look out there, try a bunch of different techniques, and then stick with the one that really works. But don't go into the meditation like this is all going to be things that you're going to work through on your path, but don't go into it doing it as a mechanical technique. You also, the other important thing is you have to have devotion and have faith that reality has your back, the universe has your back, God has your back, whatever you want to call it. And that if you have that devotion, that faith that things are going to work out, and that just devotional aspect, that your love for God and your love for the universe, you have to, that's when you're really going to start to see results. At least that's, I started to see results before that. Even the first year or two, I would just meditate 20 minutes a day in the morning. And that would just bring a lot of peace of mind and more calmness, especially as you learn to hold on to that throughout the day. But I didn't really have that devotional aspect and that faith yet fully blossomed. I was just doing it for the personal benefits of the ego, essentially, of not being as neurotic throughout the day. And I was also interested in learning the truth. I always had that, and I had that perseverance. But as time went on, I really grew that devotion within myself to really fall in love with the practice, fall in love with the process. And when you're giving your all, your whole being to the practice, and you're giving your whole being and your whole focus to the practice, that's when the results can really blossom forth. So I think that's important. But what's even potentially more important is just as meditation is going to help you then hold on to that introspective aspect of yourself throughout the day. And really, I've been able to catch myself out. You're going to be able to catch yourself out when you're just fantasizing and the ego's coming up with projections. You're going to be able to learn how to shut that off throughout the day and just live within presence and trust that your life is going to be on the path to, if you listen to your deepest intuition, which is your intuition is your soul speaking through you, and your soul is your individualized consciousness of God. So it's essentially your intuition is God speaking through you, giving you instruction on how to live your life. But people have been out of tune with their intuition for such an extent of time that they're really not tapped into that, and they're much more likely to listen and hear the ego than to hear their intuition. So it's really, this is all just, I've been rambling a little bit, but hopefully this helps some people. And it's all just a process of letting go of the obstructions that are in the way of your realization of God, letting go of the ego structure completely and entirely. And over time, introspecting and really seeing the depth of how deep these social conditionings and these patterns that you built up over your likes and dislikes, how deep they go, and how that's basically ruining your life, and how you don't need any of that. And when you can live without that, you can just be filled with love and filled with serenity and peace, and play your part in the drama of life while still being detached from it and being anchored in God. So I think that was really what I had to say. So thanks for listening, and blessings to all of you.